Far ago, in a little village perched on a hilltop, lived a Chumia family of 5. They lived their ordinary, peaceful lives until one ordinary, peaceful day, when a son and the daughter came upon a stream on their way to the fields. The sun shines bright and the water seems shallow. "Let's walk through it," said the brother. "Sure," agreed his younger sister. She cheerfully pulled up her rignai, or a makala, and tiptoed into the coolness of the flowing stream. And once on the other side, turned back to look at her brother, who stood oddly frozen, refusing to follow her. The daughter went back to the brother and said to him. Surprised, the sister asked, "Why do you stand still like that? The fields need to be worked upon, and the sun rises higher in the sky. We are going to be late." After unending moments of hesitation, he silently turned and walked homewards instead, without a word. That day onwards, the brother remained curiously gloomy and disturbed, lost in thoughts, refusing to eat well and unable to sleep well. Seeing him torn, his parents were worried out of their wits, because he just would not reveal what sorrows burdened him. And it went on until one day, his grandmother could not endure any longer to see her grandson fall deeper and deeper into his unspoken sufferings. She slowly walked up to where he sat brooding and said to him, "You have been this way for so long. What weighs on your heart? Do you pine for a girl?" To this, he finally looked up. The grandmother released her pent-up breath and laughed. "So it indeed is about a girl. You want to get married, but grandson, who is it?" He sat there in silence, staring at the brown of the earth beneath his feet. So his grandmother probed on, "Now do not be so shy. Is it Kupurti who lives 3 huts away?" Still no answer. After relentlessly naming all the eligible maidens from the village and receiving no signs of a yes from her grandson, she gave up in exhaustion and mockingly yelled at him. "There is only one unmarried girl left to be named, your sister. What, do you want to marry your own sister?" "Yes," he finally uttered. Days passed on. The parents and the grandmother tried endlessly to talk him out of the trance he seemed to be in. They said, "It is a taboo. It is a sin to marry your own younger sister. What do you think people would say?" But he was not to be moved by the rules of the society or by sense. He could not erase the image of his sister crossing the stream that day, the sunshine flickering in the ever-playful flow of the water, the way she had pulled up her rignai to her knees to avoid getting drenched, the way her legs were so beautiful. He yearned for her own sister. With every fleeting minute, his heart ached in longing for her. Understanding that there is no other remedy, the family finally agreed to the marriage, and they began all preparations in secrecy without telling their daughter. The father chopped bamboos from the forest and spent afternoons weaving the bamboo, constructing a new hut for the couple. The grandmother laid rice on the earth to dry in the sun, prepared to organize the feast, while the mother weaved clothes on the loom for the wedding. But the sister was in oblivion. One day, while she was at the fields with the other young maidens, she was asked by her friends, "Looks like your family is making preparations for a marriage. Are you getting married, or is it your brother?" She was shocked to hear that, and she could not answer. Upon returning home that evening, she decided to ask her grandmother, who pretended not to know anything. But the girl could not ignore that her family was indeed behaving quite suspiciously. Then on a fateful day, it so happened that everybody was gone to the fields to work, except for the old grandmother, who sat watching the paddy strewn on the ground for drying. Occasionally chickens would come, eat a grain or two, and she would shoo them away. The girl had not gone to the fields that day. She silently sat under a tree in the courtyard, pondering over what affairs her family could be hiding from her. A chicken hurriedly stole a few grains before old grandmother took notice and said out loud, unaware of her granddaughter's presence, "Shoo, bird, shoo! The rice is being dried for the wedding of my grandson to my granddaughter. Don't eat, shoo!" Overhearing this, the girl was shocked, and she went up to her grandmother, who was utterly surprised as she thought she was home alone. Shaken with such news, the girl was in tears. She spoke up, "How could you think of marrying me to my own brother? Why do I not know of this?" Having kept her own marriage a secret unknown to her, and having lied about not being aware of anything, the old grandmother was sad and ashamed. She could not reply. The girl wept in helplessness and rage. She knew that there was no one she could beg to for help. Her own family had deceived her. That night, sinking into a sorrowful slumber, she had a dream. A kind old stranger appeared to her and, smiling warmly, said, "Oh, poor child, do not lose heart. Seek out a Chethuang seedling, plant it, worship it, and pray to it for help." At the break of dawn, the roosters began to crow, and the village stirred with people awakening. The girl woke up and walked down to the river for a bath in the water that could never be as cold as her heart now. The fires of the forest could never burn the way her heart burned now. Yet the storm within her had subsided, and she solemnly decided to go about her day as usual, not letting anyone know of her despair. At the fields, she remained distant from her friends, seemingly engrossed in her work. But not another soul knew that she was desperately and devotedly looking for a seedling of the Chethuang tree. Every dawn, she would wake up, go down to the river for a bath, help her mother prepare food, and then leave for the fields. Every day, she would look for what she thought was her last resort, a Chethuang tree, her only savior. And this she never mentioned to anyone. Every day, the wedding crept closer. Before long, she found the tree sapling that she had been looking for. Holding the tiny plant in her palms, she felt a thin streak of light and warmth enter through the cracks into her cold, damp heart. The plant was small, her fate unclear before her eyes. But she held on to the last twines of hope, refusing to fall. She planted her only hope in a corner of the field and watered it, begging it to grow. As day went on, the sun dived lower, and the western sky was crimson. The women were leaving for home and called out to her. She called back, telling them to start going and that she would follow up soon. But instead, she stayed on and sang to the plant, her tears falling on the earth. She sang, "They say I shall be married to my brother. Grow tall, Chethuang, grow tall." To this, the seedling stirred and began to grow. The moon emerged on the east, illuminating the sky, casting its mellowness on the steady trees and the stream. The crops in the fields and the tips of the bamboos in the forest swayed with the breeze before the singing girl who knelt on before the growing Chethuang tree. Upon her not returning, the family was in chaos. Night had fallen and their daughter was not home yet. They rushed to their neighbors, who informed them how she was last seen at the paddy fields and had wanted to stay a little longer than the rest. On hearing that, the parents, along with some villagers, went rushing toward the fields in the night air. Worried for their young maiden, as the forests were full of nocturnal predators, the breeze caressed the bamboos, the crops, and her beautiful long black hair. The moon hanging in the blue of the sky behind her. She sat there singing to her tree, which was now growing faster to her voice. She perched on one of its branches, her song becoming one with the night. And on kept the Chethuang growing, carrying her to the sky. When the villagers arrived, they were in shock. The mother fell to the earth and cried, and the father tried to plead with his daughter, but her singing went on, and the tree kept growing on and on. In desperation, the father gathered a few men, and they began to chop down the tree. And she sang, "Take one blow and grow 5 times thicker. Grow tall, Chethuang, grow tall. They say I shall be married to my own brother. Grow tall, Chethuang, grow tall." The tree grew thicker and thicker, and it was impossible to cut it down. Realizing that they were going to lose their daughter, the distressed couple cried out, "Oh, beloved daughter, please come down. You shall not be married to your brother. He shall be beheaded." They fetched some blood so that she could see for herself. "There is no brother left to marry," said the parents. She sang on, "Am I unwise? Am I incapable? That you behead a black hound? Southern wind, come blowing in, let me salute my father. Northern wind, come blowing in, let me salute my mother." To this, the wind came gushing, stirring the leaves of the trees. The villagers watched on as her parents wept on. She paid her last respects to her mother and father while continuing to fill the night with her song. And on kept the Chethuang growing, carrying her to the sky until she disappeared among the clouds. This story highlights the themes of forbidden love, societal taboos, and the struggle for personal freedom. It teaches that blind desires can lead to destructive consequences, and that cultural and moral values must not be ignored. It also portrays hope, resilience, and the power of nature as a symbol of divine intervention. showing that those who seek justice and purity with sincere hearts will find a way out of oppression. Ultimately, the tale emphasizes that some traditions and bonds must remain sacred to preserve social harmony and human dignity.